I am not going to call him a good speaker when he's doing what he is doing today, sending Congress home when there is such a crisis for this nation that remains unsolved.
The subsidies are a crisis for the nation? I mean, if Obamacare was doing wonders, we wouldn't have needed subsidies in the first place. That tells you how bad Obamacare is.
The debate over America's healthcare system just took center stage on CNN, and the exchange that followed is raising important questions about how we discuss policy in today's political climate. On a recent episode of CNN Tonight, political commentator Ana Navarro joined host Abby Phillip, co-anchored by Sara Sidner, for a panel discussion examining competing narratives about US healthcare policy. The conversation addressed several key healthcare talking points currently circulating in political discourse, with panelists offering different perspectives on the current state of the American healthcare system, competing policy proposals from across the political spectrum, how healthcare information is communicated to the public. What made this particular segment noteworthy was the direct examination of how political messaging shapes public understanding of complex policy issues, something increasingly relevant as healthcare remains a top voter concern. We'll break down the key moments from this discussion and examine what they reveal about our broader healthcare conversation. What's your take on how healthcare policy should be discussed? Share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more analysis of the stories shaping.
After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation.
All right, let's pick up the debate where we left off. Joining us now at the table, Mark Lopresti. He is a CEO and senior market strategist at Market Rebellion, otherwise known as a big baller on Wall Street. We will start with,
I'll take that, Sarah. Thank you very much. I can only screw it up from here, guys. That was the highlight of the show right there.
There you are. Affordability. You hear the president talking about inflation and wages. What was your takeaway from what you heard from him? While Americans are overwhelmingly frustrated with this economy, their own personal ones and the economy at large.
I understand that, Sarah, but what Americans need to understand, and what I would have liked to hear the president say, is that the economy moves like a battleship, not like a speedboat. The president's economic policies, which are designed
It's a good thing, because speedboats are getting droned to death.
I didn't see that one coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It takes time for these policies to have long-term effect. I saw those numbers that you quoted in the A block, right? Where inflation, it started here, it went down, now we're back where it was. That's not adjusted for the tariff revenue. That's not adjusted for the fact that the job growth has been exclusively from the private sector where it needs to come. We need to look at these numbers in the context of the positive economic impact of the president's policies. And I would like to hear, and I think we will hear from the president and from the vice president, J.D. Vance, that piece of information for the public. Be a little patient. I know it's hard right now. I know we're looking at the midterms, that big popularity contest coming up. Be patient. These policies will have the impact that is desired. That's what I want to hear from this president.
Two questions. Why
voting is just a popularity contest now? I mean, that's pretty condescending from this guy.
should Americans be patient when they were promised that he didn't have to be patient, that he was going to fix things very quickly? And two, the tariffs isn't the public paying those tariffs? In other words, they're the ones having to pay. Yeah, it's coming in, but they're also the ones paying for it.
Well, so I don't think that's actually been proven, Sarah, right? So what we look at, so I'm a big baller on Wall Street.
It's not a tax on people.
You're going to say that they're by definition inflationary. I've heard that before. Listen, I was here with Abby on Liberation Day.
The Federal Reserve Chairman said it.
Well, I don't agree with most of what the Federal Reserve Chairman says. And I cannot wait for him to move on. I cannot wait for him to move on. He waited at least a year too long, in my estimate, to change economic policy, and then embarked on the fastest pace of rate hikes in the history of this great nation. That is not something that you can undo with an executive order or executive fiat. It takes time for these things to happen. Market forces are what they are. And this population should give the president time for these policies to take effect. And look, as I said to you, I was here on this set on Liberation Day, and the rest of the panel said, we're going to go into a recession by June. We're going to go into it. It's going to be a U-shaped recovery. If there's a recovery at all, it's going to be mass hysteria, dogs and cats living together. And I said to Abby, who I have great respect for, have me back in June, which she did. Have me back in September, which she did. And we will see what the outcome is. The reality, we had a V-shaped recovery. We had 3 quarters of corporate earnings growth, quarter over quarter, that were historic.
Yes.
And earnings growth showed that corporations do not, ipso facto, need to pass the cost of tariffs along to the American public.
They don't need to. They don't need to.
When you say corporations are making the money, the problem is the American public is not. And that is where the problem enters.
He's speaking like a Wall Street guy.
Right.
If you have a stock portfolio in Wall Street right now, you're doing very well, whether it's because of an AI bubble or whatever reason. If you're looking at your stock portfolio, you're feeling pretty good. The problem is that Americans who don't have a stock portfolio, Americans who don't have thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings and are having to make do with what they earn, with unemployment numbers going up, with grocery prices going up because of tariffs, because the doll prices going up, are having sticker shock because, they're looking at the cost of healthcare going up 100%, 200%. And they don't know how they're going to afford it. There's too many of them that are going to go naked.
I feel like
there's a huge gap between the people who are in the stock market
that's a false
that are your clients.
That's a false narrative.
I think you live in a bubble.
Let's talk about real numbers. When healthcare costs force Americans to make impossible choices, the debate becomes personal, and the stakes couldn't be higher. During the recent CNN panel, a key point of contention emerged. Are concerns about healthcare affordability overstated? The data tells a compelling story. For self-employed Americans using the ACA marketplace, 2026 premiums present significant challenges. Consider one example, a catastrophic plan priced at $965 monthly with a $10,500 deductible, meaning virtually no coverage until that threshold is met. For context, a zero deductible plan through the same marketplace can exceed $3,000 per month. These aren't hypothetical figures. They represent real choices millions of Americans face. This healthcare discussion exists within a larger economic context. Current polling indicates approximately 65% of Americans express concerns about economic conditions, making affordability a central political issue heading into the midterm elections. The panel featured contrasting viewpoints. Some analysts suggest the economy requires time to show improvement, while others argue that voters respond to current conditions regardless of longer-term economic trends. Healthcare affordability remains a defining issue for American families. As policy discussions continue, these real-world costs will likely shape both public opinion and political outcomes. What's your experience with healthcare costs? Join the conversation in the comments and subscribe for more policy analysis.
People that have pensions, which are average, everyday, blue-collar people, as well as professional white-collar people, they are in Wall Street.
Yeah, but they don't control their stock portfolio like I.
And millions of people don't have pensions because of guys like this. It used to be basically everybody had a pension. Now the people who have a pension are very rare in our country.
Yes,
well,
but here's the thing.
Hold on a second. Here is the number.
And they're not getting the dividends until they have to. They're not getting them. So right now they have to live on their paycheck.
It is.
Here is the number. About 62% of U.S. adults own stock. And that includes people who are, but that leaves a hell of a lot of Americans who don't. And for many people, it is what they use in retirement. It is not something you use when you go to the grocery store.
I am not a Wall Street baller, so I will take what you say as your theory of the case. I think, again, last year there was a lot of people, a lot of economists that had a different theory of the case around be patient. Joe Biden's economy is moving. It is really, really hard to be patient when your bank account says zero or negative and it keeps going lower and lower. People, whether you have stocks or not, because when you go and you cash in on your retirement, you get a penalty. It's not a false narrative to acknowledge people's pain.
100%.
And pain and patience don't really go well together. It's a real hard thing. And I worry that there is just this disconnect with most of Americans. There is like a small percentage, probably if we're at this table, we are not even in the pain place and proximity to pain, but we know people. There is a disconnect on really what is happening on the ground, not just in blue states, not just in red states, but at kitchen tables, at homes where parents are not eating a meal so that their kids can eat. And it is really hard to understand what a U economy, a V economy is when the only letter they see is a O because it's a zero on their bank account.
So here's my question
I
then.
totally respect that, and I sympathize for that. I really, really do. But the economic driver of growth, the biggest job creator in the history of this country, right, is private enterprise. And if we bring interest rates down, and this is what makes me so crazy, corporations' largest cost of capital, by and large, is their cost to borrow, particularly small business with 50 or less employees, which is also where most of the job growth happens in this country. When you have interest rates that remain artificially high and inflated for as long as they have because of bad economic policy, you are stifling job growth and you're helping to perpetuate that problem that I 1,000% sympathize with.
Because private companies drive growth in America. No question about that.
That's right.
The amount of growth, the amount of wealth this country has generated over the past 15, 20 years is gargantuan. It's beyond imagining.
It is.
And far too much of that money, this is what the American people have been telling politicians for years. Far too much of that money went to far too few people in far too few zip codes. There's this obscene maldistribution of wealth.
Yes.
And now that the pinch is coming as prices rise and they see people, beyond the imagining of the world, of world history getting rich and Trump palling around with them and rewarding them more, I'm not sure how long their patience is going to wait. There is a populist revolt. He was elected partly by it, and he's not addressing it.
Well, I think that's part of why we saw it, the speech we had today. He saw what happened in November. He saw what happened in New Jersey. He saw what happened in other parts of the country. There is a concern, right, that the midterms will end up not so great for the Republican Party. If you look, historically speaking, at the implementation of tariffs by presidential administrations and what happens in midterms, it's not great. It's not a great narrative, which is why I want to hear this president and the vice president say, give it time. It is working. We didn't have the tariffs drive us into a recession like so many people said. And on an inflation-adjusted basis and a tariff revenue-adjusted basis, we're doing pretty well.
I just want to end with this stat that the top 10% of U.S. earners account for nearly 50% of all consumer spending. That sort of K-shaped economy is what people are complaining about because that's a very few that are fueling the economy to make things like Wall Street look good.
By the way, I just read a few tweets. He interrupted the finale of Survivor.
Ooh.
4.5 million viewers. There's a lot of pissed off Survivor fans.
Only you, Anna, would know this fact.
I shaved my legs for this?
Like 50th season.
For this old man to come and scream at me about how everything is great?
When Wall Street thrives but Main Street struggles, who's right about the economy? A recent CNN panel highlighted a divide that defines American political debate. The panel revealed a fundamental tension in how we measure economic health. One perspective emphasizes financial markets and long-term policy implementation. The other focuses on immediate household pressures, grocery costs, insurance premiums, and monthly budgets. This isn't a new debate. Historically, strong corporate earnings and stock performance haven't always translated to improved conditions for working families. During recent economic disruptions, major corporations reported robust profits while household finances remained strained. The discussion carries significant political weight heading into midterm elections. Polling suggests substantial public concern about current economic conditions, a reality that could reshape the political landscape. The question facing both parties: do voters prioritize potential long-term improvements, or do they respond to present-day challenges? History suggests the latter often prevails. As this economic debate continues, the gap between different measures of prosperity remains a central challenge for policymakers and a defining issue for voters. Which economic indicators matter most to you? Market performance or household budgets? Share your perspective below and subscribe for continued analysis.